it's been parked in one spot this last Tuesday. It's been there since before that. They come and go, but then you'll see them parked around.
So welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
Always goes.
Making.
So I was confused about the,
Well, I will say that.
because I didn't know whether it was there. Because across the space, and I know that it's just put in pavers.
Yeah, so we had some work to be done on both sides. The same guy gets
Oh, okay.
both responsible.
So good afternoon.
Only when the. So somebody at some point,
Hello, Mr. Duquesnoy.
to feed the back.
My reading glasses.
So should I be able
I was thinking there's,
Norway.
stealing water?
And didn't invite us.
Ended up capping it off. Now,
Yeah, that's dedication.
the guy, I only have.
Yeah, you're not gonna jump on the call.
I mean, he's got business.
How can it be? I'm not,
right.
it has, because someone's tapped into it. They shouldn't have. So I don't know when it happened or whatever.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is June 25th, 2025 at 12 o'clock. This is the annual meeting of the Greenlawn Townhome Service Area Association. Excuse me, I'll start by asking Rose, was this meeting properly notified?
This meeting was properly announced.
Wonderful. So we will call this to order. We will do a quick annual meeting and then we'll adjourn it and begin our Q2 service area meeting, which is going to follow what most of you are used to seeing in these types of discussions. As we know, according to the Article 6.3 in the bylaws, we've kind of retro back to how they're originally written, which is why we're doing an annual meeting, as this is the official changeover of any committees or start of a committee or anything like that for the 2025 year. We had, during the application period, we received 5 applications for this service area, and we'd like to welcome the 2 new members, Kyle Gregory and Roger Balsi.
Yes.
To the committee, welcome. And then to the returning members of Cindy Smith, Roger Duquesnoy, and Rob Quinn, welcome back. Thank you all for your time and dedication to your service area. And with that, I can verify that we do have quorum, as this is a 3 to 5 person committee as it's written in the bylaws. You have 5 committee members. As you only received 5 applications and not any and no more, the need for an election is not needed. And your as a reminder, your quorum in these meetings will always be 3. So to conduct any business in your quarterly meetings will will need to have a quorum of at least 3 of your 5 committee members. The only other item on our agenda for the annual meeting before we switch to the service area meeting is to select a chair of your committee. So we will take nominations. You can self-nominate or nominate someone as well.
Well, since Roger isn't here, we'll.
Hi, I am on the line. I am listening to every word you say.
The hands are up, Roger.
I'll take chairperson.
So we have a nomination.
If that's, I'll nominate myself.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Unless you want to do it, Bob. or-
Oh, no, that's fine.
No.
For the service areas, the chair, it's more of just that point person for the liaisonship between management. But as you know, it's often a shared responsibility among most of your committee members. But okay.
We live here, so
Yeah.
question something, we're good.
Yeah. So with that, we'll take a vote. And silent acceptance. Okay. So it passes
My hand is
unanimously.
up.
Okay, passes unanimously. That's for Cindy Smith to be the chair for the 2025 going into 2026 year. The term for your committee will run until your next annual meeting, most likely going to be around the same time in 1 year. Now with that, can I have a motion from one of the committee members for adjournment, followed by a second?
Motion.
Second. Thank you. Okay. Well, that brings us to our Q2 service area meeting, Greenlawn Townhome Service Area Association. And Rose, was this?
It was properly.
Fantastic. Cindy, would you like to call the meeting to order?
I called meeting to order of the Greenlawn Town Hall Committee.
Thank you very much. So with that, we can start conducting business more as you're usually used to seeing. So we can start with old business. We'll also review your financials today as well on an typically, we've been going through any business items that may be from old business or any items that the committee members want to address or any homeowners in the room. So now I pass it to Rose or the committee. So just as open discussion.
Okay, I haven't, so this would be the old. I'm formally requesting that during the flats, when we power washing, that the front porch surfaces should be included going forward.
So including the scoops, not just the entry sidewalk.
Because they were, steps were clean. But the actual porch surface was untouched.
Correct. Yeah, those aren't typically in scope, but it
But it's
can
a
be.
flat surface.
Yeah, they were always done in the past.
Yeah.
I wasn't really happy with the service.
No.
To begin with, sidewalk, you know, was like what, water and a week later, it's got spots on it.
Yeah, it was not a good job.
So that's on that. I have a couple of points and it gets, some of it, well, let me cover this one first. So I submitted 23 days ago through the app that on the garage side of 927. So I share 925, 927, I'm 925. Behind, let's put it this way. The owner's brother came in to paint inside the garage and the wall was all chalk. He's a builder. And it's typically a sign of water. And outside, there is a hole about this big, goes down and under the garage. And you can see the slab from, you know, where the slab ends going under the garage. So it's a hole underneath there. So I submitted it. I offered to have somebody call me because you might not actually know where it is just because you did the app. And I've had no response. And, you know, I went out at 4:30 one morning to see if it was a broken irrigation line. No, there was no movement in the hole at all. So it wasn't irrigation that I could tell. I don't know if it's because of the downspouts. I don't actually know which downspout. Because we have the drainage hose off of them. I don't know where that water goes, which one's for which. And while we're talking about it, there are two drains between 925, 927, or 927 and 929. Our illustrious landscaping service, when they finally agreed to put sod down there, they covered one of them. It's not very easy to do that. It's a drain. So we discovered as we were looking, and I said, I think there's two here. And we chopped a little bit, and sure enough, so we've cleaned it out, uncovered that one. But again, kind of how the landscape operates. But anyways, this hole, we need to get somebody out there. That this could cause structural issues. And I share that garage wall, not that wall, but I share that garage. One side goes down, the whole thing. I don't know why it's taken 23 days when we mentioned something like this.
Looking at that ticket right now and we'll look at getting that addressed. Did you have a photo? No, it's just, okay.
Yeah, I think there's a photo, but it's hard to do a photo.
It is sometimes.
Because it's in behind the bush and it's down. The only other thing I could think of, but just want to make sure that it's not a water issue. But, you know, we do have armadillos.
I think Brian went and checked and said it was not an irrigation situation. I'm trying to think back, but it could have been an armadillo, not that you mentioned it.
I followed up with a comment about armadillo. Just throwing it out there. I mean, I experienced armadillos before, down south when they put down all of the trees and whatever in the neighborhood community. And I've seen them on the street
But
here,
they
so.
usually go in the front.
You did
side.
call out. Also could be an armadillo. I see. Yep.
Yeah.
But we need to get some sort of a conclusion on it, right? And if it's just an armadillo that's vacated the hole, then we just need to fill it in properly. To make sure it, you know, gets underneath where it needs to go, okay?
Let's try to call on safety.
Are we just servicing issues right now?
Um, well, for the service area, so any issues that are coming up.
I still had, I covered over the drain, covered the whole, the last landscape, I believe that we were invited on was February 26th, and there were a number of issues that were brought up that haven't seen any resolution on. No, we weren't, I don't,
They tend to be like last minute, so we don't get
the
notified.
only one I had written down, I thought my family was visiting, and it would have been February 26th. But even if it was March, although I'm not sure it is, we walked and you both were there. And Brian was there, right? So we walked around and we talked about some additional plantings on both sides of the street. And we talked about the alleyway on the other side for me behind Kyle. To do something, come back with some offers as what to do on that. I think that they did, somebody might have, I'm not sure, you can tell me, fix that parking spaces that somebody made.
Yes, that was an ARC covenants issue that wasn't being addressed.
Yes.
I did see that go through covenants.
Okay. So
Has it been resolved? It's,
Yeah, that was taken.
I thought it was, okay.
Yes,
I thought so
Yes.
too. But still, we were waiting for a proposal of what it's gonna cost to clean it up back there, whatever plans, on both sides, actually, there was a couple of things. And we had this issue in front of Roger and say 931, 929, I guess, where the plantings, it's alleged that the deer were pulling them up. I don't, that's still not really fixed. And I think part of the reason the deer could pull them up is because they put down the mulch and then they planted on top of it. So they're not in the dirt. So it's easy for anybody to pull them out. But that's still not corrected. We've got some weeds again. In the last walkthrough that Rose did, she posted a picture of on the side of Roger's unit that how well it's filled in. Well, that's the left side of the sidewalk. The right side of the sidewalk still had dead grass, places where they hadn't put in the side. Now it's actually green because it's a weed grass that's filled in. So that was never really taken care of. So I think overall there's a concern by committee members that the ratings that are given to Exquisite are not really the ratings they should be getting. And there are still dead grass places. There's parts in the park. There's weeds all over the place. And I think Brian responds on some of those. I told you about this before. Give me a break. If you dug up those things before you planted, they wouldn't keep coming up. So they're this high coming out of the flowers now, these weeds, the prior plants. So they don't prepare before they do the new. They never filled in the park area. They still haven't filled in that hole. And that pretty grass that was really nice and green is all dug up because of their equipment. They just go in there and they whip them around in the circles. It is all dug up. And it almost looks like it did before. That's it on the landscape, but I have one issue afterwards. Go
Go ahead.
whoever.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'm just new here, but I guess I'll bring it up for a discussion. I had the unusual experience a year ago where the fire sprinkler broke and just spilled. And it created a mystery to me that I didn't really know. Was I supposed to maintain that? What's the policy on that? When I bought it, nobody really instructed me. And then as I was starting to talk to neighbors, they got concerned. So some of them turned it off their water when they left to go travel. That makes me concerned because if a fire happens in one house and now the sprinklers are off a neighbor. So I just feel like we should have a common policy about these sprinklers, because I was handed nothing when I bought the place. And I don't know if that's us internally or us in partner with you, but just seems like both on inspection and I don't know, I just get nervous when my neighbors start turning off the water because that makes my place vulnerable if a fire happens in their place.
the fire sprinklers inside, we do not cover.
Yeah, it's
they have to.
However, I thought they're on a different, that if you shut your water main off, it doesn't,
It does affect the fire sprinkler, yes.
it does.
It does. It turns it off. That's how I fixed it.
Huh.
So that's why, because of what people heard with me, some of the people now up and down the street are turning it off when they leave. And that just makes neighbors vulnerable, because if a fire occurs now and their neighbor, no sprinkler's gonna turn on. Whatever we decide, just think, well, it feels to me like a committee like this should let's just figure out whatever solution. And I'm not here to point what your responsibility or ours. I'm just saying, what's the safest road?
So on that, I mean, drywall in is responsibility of a homeowner, so the sprinkler system would be part of, on the homeowner. Where we can assist is if it's something that is a shared concern, from a full community or even from the committee, we can assist in like sending out an e-blast and say, sharing that concern. So we can't do a lot, but we can help.
I'm just curious too, do you guys have any contracts with fire inspectors too? Because I mean, what was interesting, there was no record of mine ever being inspected for 10, 15 years. So
No,
another issue.
because we never do the service. I remember your
Yeah.
situation because there was all
Did
weekend.
you have an issue with
We were
yours?
trying to.
No.
That was chaos. I mean,
So I started researching, because Roger was concerned as well. Just to find companies that do it, it's very difficult. Because once I connect with somebody, one or two, whatever, three, whatever it is, to have them get a price, if 10 homes do it, this is what will cause to come in and inspect. I think that's the way to do it. There must be some buildings in town
yeah, that you guys have a
that
contract.
have some contractor that, one of the sprinkler companies.
Yeah, I mean, the town has some sprinkler.
Can we share some names on that so that,
Yeah,
help us?
I
with that?
know, I can say, in the because it's actually not a lot of the townhomes have the internal.
I heard like ours is one of the only ones.
Yes, so when you said that, it reminded me, oh, that's actually not common. And it's because so in a condo association, that sprinkler system is in the maintenance and those types of service are, even though the whole drywall in is on the homeowner, the sprinkler system as a whole integration to the building, the association helps with and, brings dyno out. And I know in our last condo council where we invite all of the chairs from the different condo associations to come together, it was shared. But it's overall challenging. Those companies are challenging to work with. So they were sharing some best practices and some vendors that they've all been trying to transition through. But let me see here, I may have that.
Yeah, I think if we could have a call with one or two or three or whatever it is, that have them inspected, but I think many of us would probably ask, what does it cost to have two shut-offs? One for the regular water shut-off and one for the fire security, right?
Well, I'd be interested too.
There's a shut off with the sprinkler system.
I don't know the units, Ben.
But that's what I'm saying. You're in a very odd spot because if you were a condo association, then then that association board could implement some structure behind that saying, no, we want each homeowner or each unit to have a secondary shut off. So that way that system is not shut off. There's not as much force that can be provided behind the committee or the board level, even on these types of requirements for your for townhomes, as it's not written in. This is not a common item.
Right.
I have a list here. I'll send a Rosendalis to send out to you from Wayne,
In this.
Wayne, Palmer Electric and Central Fire, Dino Fire and Johnson Controls, and Supremium Fire Systems.
Yeah.
Newly SAP board members weary on the estimated prices. So this is notes from the last
Okay.
condo council,
Ben,
fire safety equipment.
outside the building, do you have two shut-offs out there?
No, ours is in the house where the water is fed from what would have been the hot water heater. It feeds onto the sprinkler system. And we have an actual shut off right there.
Yeah, well, it's not as much, and it's a good thing. It's not as much about the shut-off valve, because I think I might have one in that room. It's the fact that coming into the house, it's only one shut-off. So if people shut it off so that if they get a toilet leak,
Right.
or anything while they were away, that the water shut off in the house, so.
But that would require a major restructure of your plumbing because they bury all of that inside the cement flooring.
Yeah, the foundation.
Because ours was fed off of the same line that fed the hot water heater, which is one of your main feeds.
Okay, without dragging it on, right, it's like, if it was, because we don't know. If you're able to, from the box outside.
Yep.
Just do a split there and have one shut off that goes into the house now before the concrete, right?
Right.
But that'd be just be able to talk to somebody, get it inspected, if there's a way, if it's cost you 1,000, 2,000, whatever it is, to have a plumber do this. The plumbers won't touch this stuff, by the way.
You have to get a special. Yeah.
Then we have the option of at least. If you want to spend the money, you spend the money. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah,
So do you want us to get you the information of the people and probably you meet with different companies? And
Yeah.
then before we send any blast, we have all the facts and then your homeowners can
Yeah, I guess
agree that if it's 10 or
And
share a
share,
better price.
yeah, and share best practices for, I guess, for maintaining.
Yeah, I think I'm more concerned about maintaining. He's got another issue too that's very valid. It's just that I'm concerned that there's not a regular maintenance plan for all these buildings.
As far as the outside or,
The fire sprinklers in all of our, I mean, I'm saying, so chances, it just feels like we have a committee now. We should try to create or suggest, if we can leverage, I mean, hey, here's a company that can do 10 at a time, you know what I mean, or something.
That's what I'm.
You know, what I'm saying,
situation, the bat situation.
Yeah,
the
it's one from house to house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've shared just the list. I don't have contacts or anything. I just grabbed all the names in case we needed it in that condo council meeting, and I shared that with Rosalie to send out to you all. I mean,
Can you also share, you said that meetings, one of the providers gave you a list of best practices. Can you also share that?
no one provided us a list of best practices.
You said-
Oh, the condo council as a whole is a space for the different associations to come together and share best practices in general based on just because they don't have any other connections inside Celebration.
The sprinklers being an afterthought, it was like a good idea back years ago. I think they have now decided that it's a horrible idea. It's causing more damage than good. Is it possible to eliminate the sprinklers?
I think code is 3 stories. Has to have sprinklers.
Okay.
I'm positive of that.
Well, is that true? Because there's so many other townhouses in town that don't have them. And they have 3 stories, right? Because presumably when I walk by, oh, that's my unit, but it's in a different street.
Well, not all of them.
I know a cabin.
Not all of them have like finished their floors.
South Village?
Like the building next to me.
But I
So
can't
after
imagine
I'm moving,
once my cabin-
those are only 2-story
We have to call somebody.
units. The 3rd floor is walled off, whatever. It's and very difficult to do anything because the sprinklers run through right on the top of the joist, I understand. So,
Yeah, you'll be in a different situation as you're right. It's supplementary, right? In that sense of and that's why the difference of that, if it was a Florida statute 618, it would be anything above 3 stories. And that would put bigger requirements on sprinkler systems. Townhouses fall under HOAs under statute 720 and sprinkler systems aren't required. That's also why your sprinkler systems, I'd say, are individual and where all condo associations, it's a common element.
Yeah.
Because they're shared per building typically. So each of your buildings would be one sprinkler system, not 4 or 5 or 6 are individual ones. The townhouses are built with firewalls as that concept on it. And the sprinkler systems are most likely just provide you an insurance reduction on your premiums because you have a system in play. But fair point, if they're turned off, it's gonna jump.
He brought up, I mean, in some ways, because at this point, I'd be tempted to just turn it all off, but the problem is I don't know how to turn it off
Yeah.
without turning off all my water, because the only way to fix it for me was actually turning off the whole water place.
As I can tell you, it's created a big, we're tearing into our subfloor. They've actually installed the sprinklers with the 2nd floor subfloor. So if you put a screw in the wrong place,
Oh my.
you're gonna tap one. So horrible installation. as well. So you have to be very careful. Had I not had my floor opened up, I would not have known. So I ended up gluing my second floor hardwood instead of using nails for that very reason, because I don't know where the sprinklers are attached to the floor. Yeah, we were talking right up on it. Subfloor, sprinklers right against it. Horrible design. So
Yeah, and
again,
and I
if-
can,
Was that?
go ahead.
Go ahead,
I
Roger.
could attest to it's a two-sided coin. After hearing about Roger's problem, went away last summer, turned my, water off. I mean, I did not turn the water off because, safety. And that's the one particular time where I had a leak in the toilet and, ruined, I don't know, ruined the ceiling, ruined furniture down below. So which is worse? Yeah, I mean, we've called several companies and no one even returns our call. You always end up in a recording and I can't get a return call. So, maybe having more units involved might give us a better answer. But Kyle, when you did your floor, when you tore up the thing, did you end up having the ability to put in a second shut off? Or no?
I did put there, so you've got your main at the meter, then there's a line that goes into your house from the meter. I did install a ball valve at that point as well. And if the water is off
Mhm.
long enough, I did see the sprinkler pressure drop over a course of a week or so. Like you said, I turned the water off just to my unit, right? Not anybody else's. Is that, I would assume, correct? Just my own.
I assume that's what it works.
Yeah.
So 3 out of the 4 buildings, I'm not sure about your building. 3 out of the 4 buildings, the way the water comes into the house, where the meter is, et cetera, shut offs, they're all different. All 3 buildings are different. Sergio next door was asking for help and it's like, the hell is his box system? Totally, and we saw that before, Roger and I, when the prior renters were in there and the toilet was leaking or something and wanted to know how to shut it off. And I'm like, yeah, call a plumber. So there's no consistency. It's just like 3 out of the 4 buildings have finished 3rd floors. The other one doesn't.
Well, the key would be turn off every single faucet to every single water outlet inside your house, right? Leave the main on and just turn off every single individual faucet. That kind of suck, but that is an option. You have a valve under your sink, at your toilet,
Yeah.
at the hot water heater. Those do have individual valves.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of
Okay.
crawling around in there. So
We'll get the information on these companies, get all the information and
Yeah, I mean, if we can get lucky and build off of somebody who's already doing something in celebration, I'll leave pay celebration prices, but at least if they're already doing,
Yeah.
X units, then,
4 or 5 companies that are already working in celebration that will put us up to you.
okay.
Because you're right, it's not a lot of people won't touch them.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
as soon as you start turning off those individual valves, they start leaking.
Yeah.
It's all dried up. So.
Wow.
Okay,
thank
anybody
you,
else
Mr.
want to speak?
Ralphie. That was a good point.
I'm sorry.
Anybody else want to speak? Before I have,
Question about the gates in the back of the townhomes. Are those our responsibility open and close are kind of very hard to open because you've got to kick your foot to get it. Who's responsible for getting those? Great.
Oh, okay, because it's
The gates.
rubbing, okay.
Yeah, it's like trying to get it open. I'm not sure if that's.
It's most likely between fence cycles, it's on the homeowner. During a fence cycle based on your reserve study, it can be evaluated to be done by the association. Let me pull up when your reserve study.
So we passed,
Yeah.
we passed on having fences replaced,
Okay,
2 years ago? So the funds are still out there to do that. We just thought at the time it was unnecessary to spend, $50-some thousand to replace every fence.
this is really nothing wrong. Yeah.
Because
yeah, usually the lines, I'm, that's typical. We see that the reserve studies give you X, thousands of dollars to do a full fence replacement on vinyl fencing, and most associations don't need
Right.
that.
It's-
Maybe 1 or 2 panels, but
Right.
gates as well. Let me see here.
Was that something that,
Townhomes.
that we could say if there's a repair like that,
It looked like 2000, they're done every 20
You can do it
years.
from your, because fences, including gates and hardware or wall unlock are the service area.
Okay.
The gate hardware is on the homeowner. But since it is under fences, like per se, like we pass to do all the fences, but if somebody needed their specs, you could do it.
so then what we probably want to do is just see if anybody else has an issue.
That was gonna be, yeah,
And-
typically
and
to
then-
tap reserves if it's based around a reserve expected timeline. And this says that every 20 years, your next one is 2044. Makes sense to what you just said, that it was on the reserves in 2022-ish. To be able to tap from those, it would typically does require a full assessment, so that we are not treating one home different than the other. So we send a need blast out, say, we're looking at fixing gates on fences. We know we've identified this. Does anyone else have one that needs to be addressed during this cycle? And do it all together.
Because is it, Kyle, is it the gate itself or just the way it's hanging and it's scraping?
It's just, if something has drooped, whether it be the hinges or the sidewalk could be lifted, I don't know which, right? It's just, you know,
Yeah, it sounds like the gate's sagging and dragging, where it just needs you to
So
probably replace.
But the way they do the fences, the vinyl's on the outside, but there is a cemented pole that sits, metal pole that sits on the inside that the vinyl is attached to, or it's being supported by. So if it's gonna start sagging, it's gonna be that metal pole. Or there was a gate put in a place that didn't have the required supporting hardware.
I can always pull the gate off and shave some off the bottom of it just the same. I have no problem. That's just responsibility of someone else and I'll let them do it, but I can fix it. I mean, I'm a pretty handy guy, so.
So if it comes to,
It's on
Let's call you, but
If
it comes to the-
So you don't have to
if
do
it
it.
comes to like the hardware, I found a site, and I ordered a couple.
Yeah.
Roger had a problem with his as well. So it was placed online. It was exactly like the last ones.
Yeah.
So if you have a need for that on the hardware side.
I would love for it to also open in because it's really stupid to
It-
open it out and
yes.
then go past the bushes and then back in again. Again, bad, not my decision,
Yeah.
but you know,
And we reversed ours.
oh, you did?
Yeah, we did.
I'm gonna look at that, so you did it. Like, hello,
I have a 6 foot level, if you want to put it up next to the pole, and see
Yeah,
if it's.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're construction, right? You're in construction?
Yeah.
So you probably have this level, right? Okay.
yeah, or use laser if you want to.
Yeah.
I have a question that's related. If we have already funded at least up through 2022 or whatever the year was, what do we do when we put the reserve studies together? I mean, they're assuming that we're going to have to keep funding it until 2044 or whatever the number was. Do we stop reserving or do we not, do we just make a global reserve for everything combined and compare?
Your
Why
reserve-
would we want to still keep putting money aside if it's already aside?
I mean, your reserve fund is a, global or one large pot of funds that you can, if you don't use it for fencing, it just sits in the main account and you can use that for future projects that are outlined on your reserve study. So if that means gutters or roof, it could go to that as well. So it's on an annual basis. So let's see here, your reserve fund right now in cash, because you have a couple CDs going as well. So you have in cash 24,000 and then 160,000. They're actually starting. So that's your operating. You have a lot of investments. Good. So you have 164,000 in your reserves. You were expected to start the year off in 2025 with 141,000, with $51,000 as your recommended additional contribution this year. And I think that your contributions are about in line with that. So you're funded correctly, where you can do this. It was a deferred from 2 years ago. If you want to address it now, you can for the fence on that. And if you don't, then it just
Well,
keeps
certainly I
building
think
that.
we should
And
address the repairs, the gates and those kind of issues.
Yeah,
If people have them, I'm just, I'm an advocate where, I don't want to keep over reserving. One of the things on resale property that, in Celebration in particular, we all seem to have pretty high maintenance fees. And so, I want to be fully reserved, but I don't want to end up with excess reserves for someone else to benefit with. And, the homeowner, if he wants to sell, I'm not selling, but the lower the maintenance fees, the easier it is to sell.
No, absolutely. And you're not, I'm overfunded, I'll say in the reserve. And typically that's where we can save on any increases when it comes to writing the budgets for the following year. On like next year, it's about $1,000 increase is what's recommended for your contribution. So instead of 51,000 this year, it's expected that you'd contribute 52,000 next year. If you're in a good spot where your funding is over because you didn't spend $40,000 on fences and you were able to save that funding, it usually means that you can take that, you don't need to increase that contribution next year because your account is in good standing, which overall affects that bottom line on, do you need to raise fees next year? And if, in that situation outlined, you wouldn't need to because you would be in good enough standing where you don't have to increase your contributions because you've not overspent in your reserve. And that's because you're outlining a scenario where, no, we blindly follow what the recommendation is. We're going to increase it. However, you're already well funded or overfunded. That's not typically what we try to do in the budgets because, like you said, that all that ends up doing is increasing your HOA dues,
Yeah.
which it does come into effect on your home value.
Okay. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Did you have something else, Bob?
Yeah, so it's the right place for it. We have an RV issue.
Yes, we do.
Are you aware of it?
I think I've heard, which street is that on?
They're all.
It's on Greenlawn.
It's Greenlawn and then they park on, Runner Road.
Oh,
Sent it to the news.
The other, last week they were parked in the alley.
We're having them all over the community, I'll say. If they're parked on a main street, the alleys are different. Because we can
Right.
the alleys are private, by
I knew that.
community.
Yep.
But if they're parked on any street, all we can do is, and the issue is too, and it sounds like they're doing this, if they move them. If they move them every couple weeks, then they're noticeably operable. And all we can do is we file this with our community standards team. They go out, they look and take a picture and we submit a ticket to the county sheriff. The sheriffs come out and it's at their will if they want to ticket them or not.
So I see it an issue and I understand it. I mean, we had one time the renter in Kyle's building before Kyle owned it. He had a big trailer, not the driving one. He owns a used car dealership. So when he wanted to drive it, he would put a dealer tag on it. So he parked it out in front of my building, in front of other buildings, a big one. But it didn't have the tag on it. Because it's a dealer tag, so he took it off. So I called here and they're like, well, we'll have to send a letter to the owner. I'm like, well, the owner's in Brazil. Okay, that's gonna take months. So they weren't gonna call the sheriff because it's parked on the road, right? So when I talked to the sheriff, I called the sheriff, they came out, the sheriff was there, but I saw him leave. So I called again in another week and he said, I had an emergency I had to go to. He said, they can park on the road. Like, you can park on the road if it's not registered and tagged? He's like, no, you can't. So he came out and he tagged. In this situation, I disagree with the community standards response. Respectfully. You know who the homeowner is. The homeowner signed the documents that they will not park these items. So why don't we send a letter to the homeowner? And then I physically testified already that I see these people going in and out to 915, I think it is.
Rental, right? One of the corners?
Yeah, it's on the opposite from.
Yeah. Obviously, yep.
They're in and out of there all the time. They got these little kids, they go up on your porches and they turn the water on, your house. It's just, and they're running through your bushes.
It's strange.
It's like, this isn't an apartment complex, guys. These are homes. But I don't understand why we can't send a letter to the owner. I'm sure the owner has no clue that this is being done. She's a lovely lady, I understand. But if she gets a letter that, your tenant, somebody visiting your tenant is parking on the street here, Probably do something about it.
So Jacob, can that, yeah, Jacob, can that be, is that a violation of the rules, which technically would generate a covenants violation?
No, and that's a lot of into newer bills being passed by the Senate that came out last June that has really tied what an HOA can do, especially when it comes to commercial vehicles or recreation vehicles. And then for our association, it becomes much harder as all of the roads are county roads not owned by the association. So homeowner association, even if there is writing in our guidelines or bylaws or charters stating they're not allowed, these Senate passed bills override our documents. There is a new bill that's being passed about the Kaufman bill, allowing some grandfathered requirements from HOAs regarding commercial vehicles that's currently being discussed that we are going to start looking into and into if there's anything with that bill that can help us in these situations, as we don't like what we answer to residents either. They keep calling us about campers or trailers being parked and then moved, just so that way they're considered operable. And we are, so what our community standards team is, in a sense, they're going above what they need to, but they're doing it. So they are trying to contact the homeowner, letting them know. And all we can do is saying, we're receiving complaints about your vehicle. Please don't have it in front of other parts of our community. And then we are contacting the sheriff. I don't know if it sounded like in the past that we wouldn't, but we are passing these on with the plates and the information to the sheriffs. But however, we're not seeing that they're often doing much about them.
Yeah, so I was aware of the new laws and I read it differently than you guys might, but yeah, why do we have the covenant? We can just park anything that we want on the street. It just doesn't make sense. And as you know, but this is what sometimes what happens maybe when you get a landlord. I don't know. But it's pretty ugly. They're bending down trees and the way they park it. I mean, they're parked near the curb, which I think is also a violation. We're Runner Oak and Greenlawn, they're parked pretty close to that edge. I just think that, no, I think it still should qualify to let the homeowner know.
So does the letter get sent to the homeowner then, or?
Not as far as a covenants violation, more just a letter informing them that there has been complaints about this, because we can't make it a covenant violation right now.
And I'd be pleased if we start, I'm sorry, Charles. I'd be pleased if we started out that way, because she might do something about it.
Yeah.
Now, there is something in the rules about any condition or situation that takes away from the reasonable enjoyment of, it's buried in there in the rules. So could you make the argument that an RV parked in the street is taking away from the reasonable enjoyment of someone's property? Right. I understand that it's not, I'm stretching it a little bit, but you're not citing them based on it being in the street, but you're citing them against Rule C that it's taking away from the overall appearance of the community under that particular rule, which is in our covenants.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we take that to the attorney.
Yeah, I already started a message to take looking into the Kaufman bill more with our attorney as well, and what we could do, because this is, we're getting a lot more of these. I think we're just getting more RVs as well coming into town doing this.
And they're doing Long Meadow too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, if you were able to just start with a easy letter to the owner, I think she probably is a person that would tell the tenant that they can't do it anymore. If it doesn't work, then we look what our other options are, but.
You said, it sounded like, did you send this to Rose and Delise? Did you have?
And we forwarded to community standards there.
Yeah, and she finally responded because I followed up again. So initially, was a young lady out here, that was involved, that I dealt with, and then they asked for pictures, and did I see the people going into that unit, and so on and so forth. So, And I have pictures every day of that vehicle parked there. It has not moved since last Tuesday.
And they're kind of living in it as well, right? They're kind of in and out of
I
it,
think somebody's staying.
staying in it, somebody's inside, they're kind of going back and forth, you know?
Or camping.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
That sounds.
essentially, yes.
Personally, I'm just guessing because I've just seen the people and the grandmother one time was
Yep.
taking the kids to the park or whatever. That the grandmother has that. She's the one that's always driving it. There's some other young lady that's always with her that kind of watches the kids, but not really.
Yeah.
And then there's maybe one or two other ladies that live there with the other kids. So, but again, not to beat on it, if we could think about just sending a gentle letter to the owner. Cause she has no clue, I'm sure.
Sounds like that is the process, because we just need to make sure that it's that owner. Because the last thing we want to do is an assumption and send a letter to someone that's not even, it's the wrong address or something. So, okay.
I'll sign a certification. I'll take pictures of them. I'll video them. I don't, no. That's them.
They're definitely there. Or-
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all the extra food planting. The gardening, is that gardening?
Well, they have all kinds of stuff out front, laying on side in October, ornamental.
Oh, how bright that light must be to the neighbors across the street.
They have stuff out on the porch.
A full-on, greenhouse over there.
Okay, I'm done.
Dead plant, the dead plants in the front
Oh.
of 924. You guys have any of those problems? There's a bush. You can see all the stuff underneath it now. It's dying. So where do we make addresses for that? In a letter, an email or something? Or is that on me too?
Do you just,
So the 924, I did it, but I must have been standing near 924, I'm not sure. I also did one the other day because at 927, next to me, it's like all of those plants are dying.
Yeah.
In front?
Yeah, you're gonna be getting a call from Kathy.
Yeah, you can totally see
And
the
Kathy gets up there.
trash in there. I'll get that out, but yeah, I don't know if
Okay.
it's just, this is the place for the forum for that right here today.
Yeah,
Yeah, landscaping is a responsibility of the service here.
Yeah.
yeah,
so we only have like three things, the roof, the painting and landscaping.
Don't talk about bats.
Yeah, as far as the service area goes, you're mainly correct on that.
so as long as we're bringing up landscaping, I know the decision was made to pass on hiring AES for the time being, but to give exquisite time to maybe bring up their standards. But we need to decide how much time we're going to give them. Have they,
So I think part of the reason, other than price,
yeah,
and the advantage that their pricing was. He always comes across like, he wants to do the right thing. I don't think he's a very good business person. Why are you putting down 3 pieces of sod here when it needs 10? And then next week you put one, and then 3 months from now, or just before the meeting, you put one down, right? That's kind of the way he operates.
Yeah.
There's things that he doesn't do. I'm sure he's not doing them elsewhere. Like I said, in the park area, he's not. He doesn't have enough people maybe as well, right? But to get to the main point, I think, and we had talked about a little bit, was if we wanted to change the landscaper right now, because it's a higher price, we're already operating under this year's budget, and you'd have to go to all 20 people to get the approval to increase their assessment.
okay, so,
So if we wanted to do it, I'm sorry, Cindy, if we wanted to do it, we do it for the annual budget.
okay. So it's not a quorum then of the committee that decides whether or not we hire a new landscaper? It's everybody has to say yes?
No, but we would have to just send out a communication letting them know that we would,
Approve the budget for this year for that.
if you wanted to change during a calendar year
Okay.
and in the new contract is different than your current contract and your year's budget is based on that contract. If the committee wanted to change, they can provide that recommendation and we can move forward with that with just approval from the board. That can happen based solely on the committee's recommendation,
Okay.
not, no votes required. If we just send out a communication though to the rest of the homeowners, and I think that's where it comes in that I was a little just like, I do what you want to do as a committee. However, I don't want you to receive backfire from the rest of your residents on this is a committee decision and it'll run your operating budget at a deficit by year end because of a higher contract. We can though, if we want to look at some of those proposals and because we're about to start drafting all of the preliminary budgets for next year. And we had another service area that also is in kind of a similar situation and they're wanting to switch their provider, but they also know that if they switch, their contract's going to be exponentially higher than their current contract with Exquisite. It's very same situation. And they've kind of requested that in the preliminary budget that we propose, because that we write, it takes into account some of a higher contracted number. That way it gives the committee some of that room to actually go out and really look at some of those considerations. And doesn't have to bounce back at the committee overspending in that sense.
So AES, wasn't it additional like $20 per
Mhm.
homeowner per month is what it would be?
I think that sounded about right.
So it's not,
Money well spent.
Yeah,
Good job.
yeah.
Instead of wasting the other 100 now, so might as well pay the extra 20 and get it done right.
I just
because,
want to
Including
weigh
CD
in.
income.
What was that,
Sorry, I
Charles?
just want to weigh in quickly. It's kind of,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm kind of one way, one day, another day. But I don't care which contractor it is. If we're not going to manage them, look after their work, give them real feedback and hold them accountable, we're going to be paying $20 more a month and we're going to be unhappy.
No, I'll agree.
Really,
I agree that further improvements for your service area are needed within your current. That I fully support as well.
because I looked at the
Right, I
contract
mean-
that went out to, for bid. And if Exquisite has that same contract, they're in breach of contract because they are not providing the services that are listed in the contract that I reviewed.
We would have to review
Right, and
that.
that's
as
my
typically
point.
when
If they're
we
not
are-
gonna have to enforce the contract, then, no matter which vendor we have, we're not gonna end up getting what we're supposed to.
There's no carrot and stick.
No, so typically when we launch an RFP, we take into account the current concerns as well and make sure those are outlined in there. So there is chance that what you reviewed in the RFP contract requirements is different than the current contract.
Because there's like the removal of leaves. They never removed the leaves. And that was in the contract that went out for the RFP. As far as I know, I can't remember in the 10 years that we've lived there that they've ever provided any, and I know Woodland was before Exquisite, but has not provided any weed and feed on that grass. I've had the same weedy area for years, so that's never been addressed. And yeah, so what I'm seeing in the current contract that went out for the RFP is not the service we're receiving currently.
That one we can definitely look into and see what we need to do just to keep them accountable to the scope of the contract that signed.
And Jacob, maybe what you can do, and this is just food for thought, if you can look and see maybe with other Grand Manors properties, have they done performance-based landscaping contracts with any form of like guarantees, like or kind of what we just did with the Grand Manors contract? Is there anything that it'd be hard to quantify some of those maybe, but like even response time, right? Like we expect Brian's team to respond within whatever 24 hours. Because I know you look at other contracts just across other industries. I mean, that's very much a standard. So maybe food for thought if you maybe talk to other properties within Grand Manors and see maybe what they're doing.
Go to that. I know yes.
The other question I had, where is the income from your CD? Is that all going into your reserves or is that going into your operating fund?
They have a CD they have a $20,000 CD in for their operating, as combined their operating is about 41,000, 23 in cash and 20 in a CD. And in reserve, they also have a CD in reserves for 140,000 with 24,000 liquid.
So the CD income is not going, that wouldn't offset the increase for the rest of the year, right? Of taking on a,
Their
Like,
operating fund can, and that's why we were, I guess we'll say, we weren't against looking at other or other vendors for this association, because you have cushion in your operating fund to absorb the difference. That's absolutely correct. It was just that we would know that this change will make a change in next year's budget, so we can budget appropriately in the following year. That being said, though, when we start to look at that, if we still want to, the thing is, you have a fair amount in your operating fund. But if you wanted to keep the possibility open, I'll say, and base it around the second, an AES bid in next year's budget, just to budget a different amount for a different contract for, if you want to keep that, so we can keep that leash tight, you have that 7-day out. Is it 30 or 7? I think pretty sure it's 7-day out on your current contract.
Okay.
Then we can do that, and you can switch over, and you won't have an issue of that. By the way,
I
even
just,
if we're going to
again,
switch,
repeat myself. I'm just concerned that if we don't have oversight of the contractor, we're never going to be happy.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up is that because we have the landscaping report monthly, and there's so many things that are noted in 1 month, they're not finished, as you brought up, they're not finished, or the issue isn't resolved the next month. We just keep kicking the can down the road, and nothing ever gets done about it. So again, I want to bring up the carrot and the stick. So can we withhold funds to Exquisite if they're not doing their job? I just don't know how you basically force the contractor to do the job he's been hired to do.
with the signed contract, no, but we can continue forcing that they're following the scope of the scope.
Okay. So issues could remain an issue for 6 months, and there's nothing we can do about it other than discussing and.
Yeah, I mean, you can go out on the, we walk around, Brian agrees, and yeah. And, coming out of our alley right there at Nash, up against Rogers Garage, that's all a mess. That was supposed to be sodded a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't get anywhere.
So is there a point person on this at all? Is that a question? Is there someone responsible to communicate with them to hold them accountable?
Rose is the.
Okay, so do we give complaints to you then, and you're gonna take it up with?
Yes, and I go in the walkthroughs and I have sent him back to do most of the things, and then, the gradings I give him is on the moment that we go to the area that we've gone with you guys. I do point out that there's some areas that need to be fixed. The weeds is a constant. They, as Roger says, they do go, they fix some areas. They did some planting. There has to be more,
Yeah, because this part I'm pointing out, this was there February 26th. This was discussed.
yes, and
And
that's,
it's still not-
he said he was gonna put sod. We've had some situations with sod with the provider. Not only in your area, but in other areas.
But there's new buildings going on in Island Village, and they get sod. So why are we not able to get sod?
There was a vendor, and I don't know which one they're using, that got most of the sod that the providers had to do bigger jobs. Just recently, he got some two ones of sod, of pallets, and that was for Spring Lake, and he got some more that he's gonna be receiving. When he was telling me that, I saw messages of the grower saying, not yet, we cannot cut it yet to provide it. So I checked on that. He's supposed to go back, and I know in the area for Mr. Balsi, has to put sod because it's been a while.
United, AES, and Exquisite have all reported sod shortages from the farm. So we're seeing that not just as I'll say on that one, we are not seeing it as an excuse, and they are being any sod installations are, now we're starting to see sod arriving, but we did have about a 2-month period that orders were not being fulfilled on sod. And payment on projects like that haven't been paid either. So we have a few standing in a queue of invoices that projects would have been done if sod arrived, sod didn't arrive, payments are, we're pushing past the net terms because the project's not been completed. And we're not paying until they're completed.
Sure.
And regarding some plants that have been eaten by the deer in front, he's trying not to use a type of fern to see, and he's looking for possibilities of something that can be replaced. Those plants can be replaced with that the deers won't eat them. So that's another situation that you guys have in that area. So he's working on that.
It's only that one spot, and as I said, it's not, they didn't plant them into the dirt, they planted them into the mulch. But we're also looking at, and that's not part of our committee, but the park, we look at it out our window.
I'm not responsible.
There's about 4 bare spots in the park that we noted, and it was, even noted in our reports on park grading as well, that all of that was done. We asked CDD as well, because they planted a lot of the same loriope that we planted in East Village, and it all got eaten as well. And no one had ever seen loriope being eaten before, and a lot of the mature was. And it shared a
We have seen it lots.
We
Yeah.
replaced, when we were over in Spring Park, Lou, we replaced that because the deers loved it.
Yeah. And all
That
you
was
have to do
over
is
10 years ago.
Google deer resistant plants. You just Google it,
There's a couple sample plants that have been planted over there just to see if the deer eat them. I don't think they are, and so we're planning to switch out those bare spots that were eaten out.
Okay.
What
So-
CPD is claiming that it was due to that time of the drought, because we're like, why are they not eating any of the mature loriope? Why only all the new loriope? And they said because of what their assumption is, and it's assumption, is that all the new planted loriope has a higher water concentration in it, and the deer were eating that during the dry season. That's why they weren't eating any of the older as well. Again, that's an assumption on it. But we're seeing this in a Croton Park as well, which is not anywhere that the deer typically go, but we had new plantings also being eaten, where that same plant exists on the other side of the road and they're not eating it. They're just eating the new plantings of it. So we're addressing that.
I think there's still an irrigation issue in that park as well. There's a whole bunch of dead plants that aren't coming back,
That section right
on the corner.
on the corner. Yep, I notated that.
It's one type of plant and then
The
it's another.
secondary plant, yeah, I think last week I noted that, all of that, there were 2 when we walked in March that had failed. And now the rest of those, that same species has failed.
Yeah, and then the sod that's in front of Roger's house that was planted when they did the park came around there. So a lot of that's dead. So I don't know that it's getting water.
On the easement there, right?
Yeah, we
Right along.
we talked about the water not reaching it, and, I don't think they actually adjusted the sprinklers after they, before or after they planted.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it filled in, but no, some of it's not coming back. Okay, all right.
On a park level, those are being monitored and we are looking at still getting those replaced. In the park.
And you heard me talk about what they're doing to the side.
Yeah, I'm gonna go check that out too.
It was so beautiful. It was perfect.
The hole is interesting because I noted that too, and I saw them when they filled it and it has resunk. So I'm gonna, yes,
It's all weeds now too there. in the hole.
yeah, that one hole.
I never saw it filled. Okay.
No, I
I
didn't,
don't-
I
I
went
didn't
out to make sure that because I wanted to make sure that new sod we just laid wasn't damaged when they filled the hole. So I wanted that they ripped up the sod, filled the hole, put the sod back, and I stepped on it.
Well, that's
Now
more
it's sunk again.
Then it's more concerning.
Yeah, that it's like a sinkhole. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is the concern.
But the sod itself was all nice and green and lush and then, they're just out there on those machines and doing,
Yeah.
donuts and
Yeah,
whatever as they
they
mow.
spin the tires when they turn and it tears up the grass down to the dirt.
And the sod that's closer to Nash doesn't have the same damage as the other 2 locations, right? It's like 3 areas of sod. But you'll notice it there. It's got
They're
a ton.
driving too fast in small areas.
Yeah.
When you look at the strip, the amount of space between the sidewalk and the strip, they can't do the speeds that they're doing because they're almost constantly going around trees and whatever. And with a high speed, you're going to rip up the sod.
I mean, it was really nice looking and all the plants and I still think there may be some water issue in front of me for those plants because they weren't looking too good and that was after we had rain. But yeah, when I look at the sod, I'm like, this is horrible. And there's been a lot of people that are giving me credit for moving the doggy.
Are they giving you credit for that? You can take all the credit for that if you want. No, no, it's a better location though, right?
Yeah, they don't have to walk through our bushes. They don't have, I mean, it's a win for everybody.
I'm glad to hear that was fixed for you.
Don't sit too long on a hot day on the bench.
Yeah. So bench, can I bring up on the unpark? They did the pressure cleaning of the two walkways and they also pressure cleaned the benches. So they're right down to the wood.
They didn't stain those?
They haven't been stained in years. So it's like,
They're
okay,
actively staining now, because I've seen 3
Okay.
parks this past 2 weeks been stained, but I think they're on a cycle in a different village, but I'm gonna make sure
So they have
I
to
replace those.
okay, probably have to clean it again before they stain it. But also note, the last time they did stain, maybe 4 years ago, I don't know when it was. As the rain clouds were coming in, the guy was staining.
Okay,
Good time.
I'll put a work order in.
Thank you, thank you. If I don't get out of here, I'll come up with some more stuff. That's how old the brains work.
Let me see here, financials, right? We want to discuss your financials. Well, I'll just go over this one, if you don't mind. It's gonna pull up the other version of it.
Real quick, if you guys put any kind of garage opener keypad on your garage other than the old brown one, they're gonna ding you for it, I know, so I took it off.
I think so I shared that, I think at the Q1, but you are gonna be seeing typically more inspections in town hall than in previous years.
Yeah.
As a change to some contracts.
It's funny that that's what I got dinged for.
Why did you get dinged for changing it?
It came with one of the camera on it, crime's higher here now, so it'd be good to have a camera back there.
Yeah.
And he said, no, because it's white. I think if I spray paint it, I'll do an arc on that one.
Oh, yeah. Do an arc
Maybe
on those.
okay. Just be sure you don't just put one up. I did, like, that'll be okay. Cameras are allowed here now all over the place, but
Oh, they have a keen eye for doorbell changes and they reference I don't know how but they do. They go into all the logs and see, is that doorbell did they file an ARC? If they didn't file an ARC, yeah, they're quick at putting those covenant violations out.
it took, a few weeks to see it.
They're approving more, ARC is approving more and more and more.
They're updated. You got the camera and it's just a little bit better than the old fashioned flip up cover, it's the browns, but.
Yeah, I think from the doorbell side of it, by you coming up with that new process, and I really identified laying it out a couple of months ago, actually expedite the whole process. That was good.
The new ARC guidelines on that, I did streamline it. And a lot of the doorbells now, because of the streamlined documents that the ARC committee created.
Yeah.
And the board ratified, they are allowing those not to require a full ARC vote.
Yeah.
And as long as it's meeting the guidelines, the ARC coordinator can approve those. So you're seeing, instead of the 45-day turnaround.
Yeah.
You're seeing like a week or less.
I will have an issue at some point though. I guess when the place was built, they upgraded to the wireless intercom system. That is so junk. It's gone, right? So now I have this giant 4x8 keep speaker on the front of my entrance. So with it being built in, there's gonna be a giant stucco issue on the block. So my plan might be to get Art to approve a Ring camera with a special modified bracket that would hold it onto the wall. I don't know. I need some help with this one, but I guess I'll get you guys involved with that. But you guys with that, or is that more of the?
You have to submit an ARC application. But, if you have like a picture or something of what you want, or a little drawing or something that will help expedite.
The more
You
detailed
wanna give me
information you
a
put in
little
those
note that you
applications, the
send it,
better.
So I can probably.
It was a good idea at the time, but horrible idea now. It's wireless now. Who knew, right?
I know.
There's speakers, but all our speakers gotta come off.
Okay.
So financials, we lightly went over your accounts on a high level. Your operating account is sitting good. Let's get on a monthly. Your operating expenses are around 4,100. We typically try to keep 3 to 6 months in your operating fund as a good, that 3 is really right, 6 is you're in good standing. 24,000. So that would mean that your operating fund, and to be looking in a very good shape, would have about $24,000 in it. Your operating fund has 23,500 liquid and that additional 20 that's locked in a CD. So you're even better than good when it comes to where your operating fund sits, and you're doing the right thing by putting the excess cash in reserves. And we wouldn't recommend putting anything more. As like I said, our finance manager is advising anywhere between 3 and 6 months of cash sitting in your operating fund, which you are on by just a couple $100 from the high of 6. So you're looking good there. Investments, you're right on track to where you should be at this, or sorry, your reserve fund, you're right on track to where you should be. When we talk about your reserves, we look at what large expenditures do you have up in the next couple of years, or this year even. So your reserves are in a good shape for the next coming years, as you don't have a roof project, you don't have a paint project on the upcoming. Your only expense that's populating for 26, 27, 28 is about $4,000 a month or a year for landscape improvements. Where your fund sits, I do provide this recommendation to most service areas where $4,000 isn't you can't do a lot of improvements with that, with your 4 buildings. If it's something that you choose, our recommendation is to take 3 years worth of funds, defer any landscape improvements for 2025, do a larger project in 2026 using 2025, 2026, and advancing maybe 2027 funds. So that way you're doing a $13,000 improvement instead of just piecemeal things around. If that's something in mind, I know that's probably not something that you're looking at doing right now, as right now just current ground maintenance is the priority over adding and adding and adding. But that is just in there for that. Do you have a landscaping general? So another thing when it comes to new plants, if you ever wanted to put new plants in, I know, like you said, I'm talking about, we need to build a proposal for the alleyways. So
Alleyway, and a couple of spots, yeah.
in landscaping general, in your operating account, you have a $5,000 annual budget. It looks like 2,000 of that has been spent. So there's still about 3,000. Typically, I wouldn't recommend pulling any of that 3,000 yet, especially because it's good to keep a hold or to keep a buffer in that during hurricane season if anything's needed to cover hurricane cleanup expenses or something like that. But it's something that can be evaluated towards the end after that season if you want to do, $3,000 worth of any landscape additions or changes. You can do that out of your operating fund and not need to touch your reserves.
I'd like to see the proposal we requested when we did the walkthrough. We can put it on hold a little bit, maybe get through the summer. And then get it done, but at least we're ready, because if I'm correct on the date, that's 4 months ago that we asked.
That is something that needs to be followed up on.
Because we're still doing catch up, right? And then the biggest thing that happens is if the landscaper's not maintaining the property, then we plant stuff and it doesn't survive and we have to replace it because it wasn't maintained.
Yeah. You don't want to, as I said, we don't start throwing money at a problem. Other than that, your reserve, you have in 2029, $8,000 for any sidewalk repairs that most likely won't be needed but you have that there. And in 2000, jumped ahead way too far there. And then your next paint project will be next in 2031, followed by roofing the next year in 2032. All that to say, you're going to just keep seeing your reserve fund growing year after year to fund those projects in the coming years. but you're not, yeah, you're on a good project or a good set for that. Regular expenses, when we go down the line, there's been some irrigation repairs, slightly over budget, but still in line. I mean, you have a very small irrigation budget annually at $350. Your expenses this year have been $460, so you're just $100 over, but where your account's sitting, there's nothing to worry on. General repairs, you're doing in really good shape, as that's a $2,000 line annually. We're at $400, where we should be year to date around $1,000. Gutter cleaning is coming up. That RFP is closed. They're working on getting one more bid. That'll be most likely presented to the board on their workshop for an approval for all the service areas. And then the gutter cleaning project will start late July and August. Power washing, we have noted the requests include the front stoops during the spring flats. And so then you'll just have the fall power washing. This is really good to see that you have spent $0 in roof repairs. A lot of other associations are way over budget when it comes to roof repairs. So good job on your last roof.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, as far as that goes, the gutters kind of stink. It's good that the cleaning's coming because it backs up right over my porch. It
So-
streams down against my windows.
And this project has been slightly revised from last year, where it also includes thorough flushing of the downspouts instead of just more of a dry cleaning of the gutters.
Which will be interesting because Brian put these things on the end of the downspout into the ground to keep it away from the house or something, whatever, but if the leaves are going down there, that's gonna fill up underground.
It's not working. I'm still getting a lot of mulch debris being washed down
And the rocks come up, and they put
Yeah.
a shovel full of rocks and they're coming up, so
It's,
anyways,
His attempt at a French drain was not a very good job.
and that was our second attempt.
Because
What was before those?
footage that
It
you.
wasn't anything, the downspout came down and it went off the concrete, right?
Uh-huh.
So he put in the black pipe. When he first put it, he was using like electrical tape around it, looked like hell. And Rose came out with him and he's like, that's done wrong. It's like, that's why we inspect the landscape, the contractors, right? So he did clean it up. But again, it's only going from here to Rose, not even that far. And a little hole in the ground with some rocks and a piece of fabric over it. That's
There's a certain amount of runnage that you have to have, and it has to be embedded with inside of P rock to make sure that it's going to drain out.
Yeah.
So it comes with a volume of water coming down your spouts.
And this is Florida, and it's come down heavy.
that's the tales.
Anyways,
Termite bond, you're over budget on the termite bond. That's kind of trending, and I know that the finance team and Rose really been looking to all of the termite bonds right now and renewing contracts and trying to rectify and clean those up a little bit. Unfortunately, the prices have been, or for these bonds are higher than anticipated in 2025. So you are seeing a bit of a dip on that.
well,
So,
but I mean, for the annual budget for a termite bond was $826. And through May, we're at $1,143. That's a huge difference.
No, your annual budget, your year-to-date budget is 826.
Okay, annual is 1981.
So you're still looking a bit over.
Yeah.
But yes, that's something we're trying to really clean up those so that way they're better.
Okay.
They're gonna look better the following year.
so are we looking at doing all of the service areas under the same company to give us a better price?
All the service areas except Spring Lake Townhomes and Island Village, all of them are with, Florida Pest. The recent, Island Village has, a different one, and we approached them, but they're like double. It's our last one. And the issue with this is that we bring any new company, they're gonna have a startup charge. So they're gonna have to it's gonna be more expensive. The ones that Island Village have is because Mattamy, during the new construction, they stayed with the one they had from them. And Spring Lake Townhomes, they've always wanted to stay with that company they have. And we approached them also, and I think the price was way higher.
So Florida Past has most of
Other
the
ones,
Okay.
yes.
Capacity would bring us a better price, but it doesn't.
No,
And then your electrical and water, you're looking in great shape, thank goodness. I know we've had issues with those in past years, but electrical, you're about half. And same with water, you're below where you were budgeted to be. So overall, I mean, year to date, the anticipated spend from your operating would be at 16,000 and you're at 14,000 flat, about 15% under budget. So you're looking good on that, knowing that the fall power washing is still, and the gutter cleaning are still to come, which are, larger expenses in the tail end of the year, but
And it's always good to a good idea, but there's some bills that lagged a little bit and they don't show up in that month, they go to the next month, so. But I agree, this looks pretty good.
yeah, overall, you're pretty good. And I think what you see there is power washing typically is one that shows up in the following month because we don't permit payment till it's all finalized. So that's why you're seeing the power washing hitting May when it wasn't done. It was done in May? Or was it in April?
April.
April, yeah. So you're gonna see some of those usually hit the following months. But yeah, so you're not any hard conversations on your accounts. You will be probably invited to a budget workshop towards the end of July, early August, where we will be presenting a preliminary budget for next year and then gaining committee's input on it as well, before finalizing those and taking those proposals to the board. But all in all, based on your current finances, your reserve, where they are, you're not looking at in bad shape for any exponential increases next year. There's usually some increases in your operating, mainly due to just some inflation increases on operating. Your reserves doesn't look like it has any higher contributions. Promising from a really high level when we look at what your next year's dues are looking like for your service area. As we do have about 8 more minutes left in this time, is there anything else we're wanting to cover today?
No, I'm good. I do have some palm trees that haven't been done in years. That may need to be cleaned up. So I might take a look at it,
Are they in front by the park?
in front of my unit.
Huh.
Yeah. There's one near Roger and Diane, but that only has a little thing on the top of it. Mine are all the other kind of tree. And then I think one might be on the house next to me. So it's like 3 or 4 of them, not a big deal. I'd go out and do it myself. Then I'd probably get yelled at.
Keep making note of that. That can be added in.
Yeah.
Typically, Exquisite does those in-house, so it saves a fair amount of money.
Well, I know the last time they were done, we kept getting told that they were done last year, and stuff. No, they
If
weren't.
they need done, they need done.
So then finally somebody got on the phone, I don't know, I don't think it was Rose. Somebody got on the phone and we had some poor worker show up there with his little vehicle and he busted his butt. Now, he didn't clean it up, you know how you clean up palm trees? That wasn't done, it still looked like hell, but at least we had
The
something.
dead fallen.
And, yeah, but anyway, it's been that long since it was done.
I just have a quick question. The things like where the deers are eating the plants and so on and so forth. Is there any warranty on that? Or is that something we just keep paying for each time?
On the new plantings, I guess I can answer specific to the park is no, we're gonna be changing those out under a warranty. Changing out to probably a different plant, but yeah, those are gonna get replaced under warranty. And there were some plantings in your service area as well, right? Like,
Right in front of his house.
so, yeah,
Right. Right. I just kind of want to make sure we don't let the warranty period go away because Brian does have a tendency to push things out.
Now, on those, as long as we notify the issue during the warranty period, if the warranty has passed and it just hasn't been rectified because, oh, it's the drought, or, oh, we're waiting on figuring out what the deer is, it doesn't cut, no, we don't let it come to that point where it's, oh, well, now the warranty's expired. No, it's still being done under warranty, even if it's now X months past the warranty time.
Great, thank you.
Good question. All right, well, thank you all. I appreciate it. Welcome to the new members. Oh, one, welcome. Just for formality, can we get a motion to adjourn? Anyone? can-
Motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, there is the code of conduct. You're right, that all committees are requested to sign by the board. Let's pass these out as well. And then email communication. I think most of you are aware about the new town, using the town hall email addresses.
Yes.
Okay, super. So you're gonna see information about that, switching those two things over.
Sir?
Wait a minute.
Hi,